Okay, it's time to go into the second grouping of information here on the field of psychoneuroimmunology. And once again, I was very impressed with what you guys had to post with that particular field. It is part of the scientific realm now because people want to understand what are some of the mechanisms between mind and body to actually help people and their health. So the National Institute of Health has a division now for complementary and alternative medicine, or integrative medicine, I think it's called. The difference is if it's alternative medicine, then instead of taking the meds, you just do alternative things. But most of the time we like to be integrative and actually do good mind-body practices as well as do our medical management as well. So what I'm going to do in this particular presentation is, I know a whole lot about this particular field, so I've posted a series of abstracts for you. And what I'm basically going to do is kind of talk you through these abstracts. Basically what I would like you to do is type up the summaries of these particular abstracts. You can even include the abstracts in what you post to me that really kind of define this particular field. I wanted to start it off with kind of tier 1 types of studies. That's just my own subjective organization that I think these first couple of studies are kind of they really create like the wow sense in me. They're really great studies that really did a lot for the particular field. So let's start it off with the Adder and Cohen study from 1975. This research basically redefined the whole field and brought into being this idea of psychoneuroimmunology. Very simple setup, despite the fact that the abstract is kind of complicated here. They took rats and they basically gave rats some sugar, saccharin. And then after they gave the rats the saccharin, what did they do? Give them a drug that suppressed their immune system. So they gave the rats a sugar drink, and then they gave them an immunosuppressant drug. What does it say? Cyclophosphamide. And then they did that. And of course, if you give a rat an immunosuppressant drug, what will you find happens to the immune system? The immune system will become suppressed. And that's exactly what happened. So on trial 1, the saccharin, the sugar, would be the neutral stimulus. The immunosuppressant drug would be the unconditioned stimulus, and the decreased immune response would be the unconditioned response. So what do you think happened after they did this for a number of trials? Well, hopefully what you've guessed is that the animal, once they started doing this, you only had to give them the sugar solution, and all of a sudden the animal would have an immunosuppressant response, which is very, very interesting when you think about it. The idea that you can actually have sugar and the sugar can cause an immunosuppressant response. This is classical conditioning. But think about it. What kind of classical conditioning is this? You're classically conditioning the immune system. You shouldn't actually have the immunosuppressant response just to sugar, but because the sugar solution was always paired with the immunosuppressant drug, that pairing, that association led to this. So this was really the first big finding in the field and led to the development of this field that we now know as psychoneuroimmunology. You can take psychological things and actually condition the immune system. So that was very, very fascinating. Study number 2 for you. A Levine study. Once again, a kind of complicated abstract here, so let me give you the Reader's Digest condensed version of this story. They basically took dental students. These dental students had to get their wisdom teeth removed. Have you ever had that fun experience? I know I did. What was the year? 1985. My beloved Ohio State Buckeyes went to the Rose Bowl. I went back to New Jersey and had my wisdom teeth removed. I think they had a little more fun than I did. So anyway, they had their wisdom teeth removed, these dental students, and they gave them, the usual meds to help them with the dental pain, and that was the case in the first part of the study. So they got medicine to help them with the pain. They got morphine and other related substances. What does it look like? Diazepam is Valium, nitrous oxide, local medicines as well. But then what was really interesting is what happened in phase 2. In phase 2 of the study, what they basically did is the medical staff came into the patient's room and said, "Would you like another injection to reduce the pain?" And of course, the people who were getting over their wisdom teeth removal said, "Yes, that would be great." So they gave them what the patients thought was medicine, but as it turns out, they were getting nothing more than an injection of saline. So in this particular phase, they were just getting saline. And even though they were getting saline, what was really interesting is what happened when they came back into the room a little bit later. The healthcare provider came back in the room a little bit later and said, "So how are you feeling now?" And of course, a lot of the people, about half of them, said, "Oh, my pain's gone away. I'm feeling a lot better now." So what do we call that? That's called a placebo effect, and that's exactly what happened in the second phase of this particular experiment. They were having the placebo effect. So in the final phase for this, they did something else that was very, very interesting. They came back in the room again, and when the people said, yeah, my pain's no longer the case here, I'm doing just fine, they came back in again one more time in the next phase, and they said, "Well, I'm glad you're doing good with your pain right now. Do you mind if I come in and would you like another injection?" And of course, the patients would say, "Yes, I'd like another injection to continue helping me with my pain." But in this last phase, in Levine's study, they came in and they had injections. These injections were injections of something called naloxone. Naloxone, or if you've ever heard of it in the emergency room, Narcan. And all of a sudden, when these patients had this injection of naloxone or Narcan, all of a sudden they reported feeling the pain. So that was the method, that was the result. The question is, what the heck was going on with this? So let's kind of go over it just a little bit, especially in that last phase. Naloxone, why would they give people naloxone? Well, if you think about it, naloxone, as the abstract says, is an endorphin blocker. So when you take naloxone or Narcan, many times in a hospital setting, they give patients Narcan who come in with heroin overdoses to block the endorphin receptors. But in this particular case, they gave them Narcan and all of a sudden they said, "Oh, my pain is there. I feel dental pain." What this suggested to people like Levine is the idea is very simple, that in the second phase or in the phase of the experiment where they came in and they just gave them saline and all these people were saying, "Oh, I feel the placebo effect." The question is, was that all in their mind or was their body actually doing something? And in phase 3, when they gave them the naloxone, the answer became, oh, they must be causing in the earlier phase when they're saying the pain is all gone, maybe they're getting their brain's own endorphins to kick in. When they're getting the injection of saline and they say, "Oh, I feel better," it's not just a response bias there. It's actually based on the brain releasing endorphins, because in the final phase, when they gave them Narcan, that effect was removed. So this is a classic study in the idea of mind-body effects, because it basically shows that if you think you're feeling better, you can actually get your brain to release their own endorphins, and it can be blocked by Narcan here. Okay, so maybe one other study to share with you here. This is the final study I wanted to share. It's a very classic study done by a guy named David Spiegel. Very, very simple study. Took women with metastatic breast cancer. And with the particular women here with the metastatic breast cancer, he basically, they were getting chemo and radiation to help with their breast cancer, but then he had half the people participate in social support groups once a week for an hour and a half. And if you look at the results of the study, if you're actually getting chemo and radiation and you're in a support group, your survival time was 36 months. If you're not in a support group, your survival time is 18 months. This suggested that the psychosocial support could actually be helping out your immune system. So this was a classic study in the field of psychoneuroimmunology to suggest that social support, we've always known it's good for your psychology system, but this suggests that psychosocial support can actually help your brain as well and actually help your immune system recover in a strong way. So psychosocial support is really part of it. Now, some of the findings after this particular one didn't really show this as much, but we certainly believe that psychosocial support is really a key variable in helping people to survive. So hopefully this makes good sense to you, and I think that'll do it for the Tier 1 studies. Thanks. Bye-bye.